Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Tuem and today I'm going to talk with Marina about St. Petersburg city, which is located in western part of Russia. I'm very excited about this because this is the first time we are considering one city as the topic of our live shows. So if you guys will be interested in this, we can cover all cities, not all of course, but the interesting ones. So Marina is here. Let me invite her over. Send the request. Hey Marina.
Hello, how do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well. How are you doing?
So great that you hear me well. So nice to meet everyone, and you first of all, of course.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
for
much.
inviting me to the interview.
Thank you very much for joining us. You are in the car now, right?
Yes, because something was wrong with time management, but as we've decided to have it at 18 o'clock, Russia, St. Petersburg. I do not know, by the way, what time is it there in
It,
Cyprus?
yeah, now at the moment it's 5 o'clock. We have only 1 hour difference. But the
Oh, that's
weather is totally different as I can see from the window of your car.
weather, but for St. Petersburg, it's quite a usual one because today is rainy, not snowy. So, this is also one of the myths of Russia that it's very cold here, so I think we will discuss this. But to be honest, talking about St. Petersburg, it's usually rainy. We are the city of rains, we can say. And yes, today is rainy. And by the way, I think maybe you've heard already that today is the last day of Maslenitsa. Have you heard about such a fast
May,
folk?
maybe I heard, but I don't remember what was it about. Can you tell us
Well,
about it?
why I started to talk about this because the last day of Maslenitsa, and Maslenitsa is about in general, about telling goodbye to winter and telling hello to the spring. So we hope that winter will go away, and rain tells us about this also, that the spring is coming.
Oh, it's
And
good.
this is the time when we eat lots of our traditional food like blini, pancakes, near
I
one of
see.
our traditions. And
Bro.
um, by the way, as I've told you, that Maslenitsa is about the uh, welcoming the spring. So how do you think why we eat blini, pancakes? How do you think? Why it's
Yes.
like the symbol?
What do you mean how we eat that? You mean the way you eat
No,
that food
why
or
we eat them
oh
is
you why?
especially,
Okay. No, why
you
is
know,
that?
it's blini, it's like they're of the round shape usually. And this is like the symbol of the sun. So
Hmm.
we're welcoming the sun. And that's
Oh, I
very
see.
traditional in our culture. All the tourists who come here, they try blini for sure. It's, like, I didn't know, like our fast food, let's say so. You can find it almost everywhere.
Yeah, many Russians even in the room didn't know about that, and it was educational, guys. And also in Iran, we have a celebration for spring, and that's also this is nice that you guys also in St. Petersburg they have also such a tradition. But I know in the other part of Russia they have it too, right?
It's all everywhere in Russia. This Maslince, it's for a week, and as today is the last day of this week, each day it has its own name. And for example, the last one is about forgiveness. So we like tell, forgive me for everything that I have done, or maybe for that I haven't done, but you have waited for me. So forgive me, my followers, if I haven't done something. I'll try my best to
And
do
by
it.
the way, are you originally from St. Petersburg or other city?
I even not from Russia, let's say
Ah,
so.
Lithuania, right?
Yes, originally I'm from Lithuania, and for the foreigners it's quite difficult to understand because this was one country, USSR. So I am originally Russian. I am Russian. Marina is a Russian name, but I've came here to St. Petersburg during my to get my education, higher education, and that's why I'm in love with this
How
city.
many years ago was it?
I've came here in 2004.
Oh, okay, long time. I see.
Yeah, so I know this city quite good. I feel
Yes.
really like at home. Just I understand that maybe it sounds strange that how you can be a guide if you're even not from Russia. But for foreigners, it's hard to understand that it was one country. And that's why Russians were everywhere and in the Baltic states too, and some of them are still there. So, but after Lithuania, I came here and I've chose this city for my higher education, and I've get not one, and one of them is also to be a guide, and that's why I'm happy to speak about this city. And I'm all the time I say welcome to Russia, welcome to St. Petersburg. It's so much to see here. It's unique.
Yeah, and
Uh,
for those who asked, I came to Cyprus 12 years ago. So I was born and raised in Iran. That's why I mentioned about that Persian tradition that we have. But in Cyprus, this is different because we have northern and southern part now. So in northern part, we have Turkish people, in southern Greek people, and they celebrate differently. So it's hard to explain exactly what we follow in Cyprus. And so, Marina, what do you like and dislike the most
Just
about?
a moment to mention, that's why in Russia as we are multicultural, we celebrate all the fests. And I
Of
suggest
course,
you also to have from the north and from the south, just
exactly.
the
That's the way it should be.
that you give your positive energy to during these celebrations. And as we burnt that Maslenitsa also, this is like from the like you all your negative energy has to go away with the winter and with the sun, with spring, which is not very usual for St. Petersburg, the sun. As I've told you, we are a great city. It's great to celebrate it. Mhm.
Yeah, and I suggest everyone to invite us over for your traditions. We would say yes for sure. And this is a great thing to do. And Russians, they do it. When I was in Moscow, they invited me over all the time, and they were very hospitable, and they were very proud about their celebrations, and all the time mentioning, for example, this day is for that. And you did the same, starting your conversation with what day it is, and this is
But
wonderful.
just it happened because today is a really special day.
Yes.
Of course, it's not a governmental one. As you've heard, we have governmental celebrations that are even huge. But this day is very traditional. Each family do not have the reason why not to celebrate it. And we really eat pancakes. They are not only for the foreigners, we also eat them.
Yes, that's true. So I wanted to ask you, what do you like or dislike the most about St. Petersburg?
I can't tell what I dislike because I like it. I love this
Is it
city.
even possible? That doesn't even have not even one item that you say, okay. For example, for me, I don't like the weather of St. Petersburg.
We have such a joke that even St. Petersburg, the weather would be shiny all the time. All the Russia would come to St. Petersburg in this case because all other things are so special, and you cannot love the city when you come here. You've told that you were to Moscow, but have you been to St. Petersburg also, maybe?
Yes, I have been in St. Petersburg 3 times, but unfortunately, each time was less than 4 days. And so I don't know about many things, most probably in St. Petersburg. But I love the city, and that's the exact reason we are having this conversation today, because I
This
was very
was
excited
that's
to talk about it more.
This was the surprise for me actually, because I've searched through your account and I understand that you speak, and I see guitars uh, behind you. So you spoke usually about the music, and I so was excited that you decided to change the topic. I hope it will be interesting not only for you but for your followers who love music also.
Yeah, it was the first time that the topic is devoted to one city. And I'm very happy that we are having this together, and especially with stuff from St. Petersburg. So I'm really looking forward to receive the feedback of everyone to see if they like it. I can continue with other cities as well. And someone from Egypt says that we celebrate Mother's Day on the first day of spring in March 21st. That's great.
So also have lots of interesting things to celebrate, you see everywhere. We had the Mother's Day, but the other day. So it differs, but we also celebrate it.
Yes.
As I told, we love to celebrate. And as you've mentioned, Russians are very hospitable. I believe it's true. But you know, there are lots of myths which I try to crush. Because lots of foreigners, they do not think that Russians are hospitable. They are like afraid of us, I even have to admit. And of course, now we will speak about the pre-COVID period, let's say so, because of course now everything is closed, the borders are closed, and thanks to the internet, we can discuss and speak to each other. But unfortunately, more than for a year now, I haven't seen tourists at all, as you understand. So, but when they come, sometimes they choose St. Petersburg, the first city, even not Moscow, the capital, but sometimes they choose St. Petersburg because, especially Americans, because there was the opportunity, and hope it will be also after COVID. If you come with a liner, cruiser ship, you can stay in St. Petersburg without visa for the largest period for 3 days. And of course, for 72 hours. And of course, for people, it's like the opportunity to come for the first time, to have a glance. Is Russians, do we have to afraid of Russian people to meet them for the first time? You know, of course, for St.
And not to
Petersburg,
be afraid of Medved also.
yes. But you know, there are still people who think that we have bears all around here, that
Yeah,
it's
that's
no
the
bear
stereotype. Yeah.
and drunk people like everywhere, you know. And when they come here to St. Petersburg, they are shocked that something is different, not as they thought to be. And usually people are coming when the cruiser ship is coming. Usually they are at such a trip that they have only one day, only one. This is the most usual. 3 days only, very rare case. 1 or 2 days usually. And of course, this is the opportunity, as I've told, but it's too small to be in St. Petersburg because we have so much to show. And as I usually tell to my tourists, you know, if you saw St. Petersburg, please do not think that you saw Russia, because St. Petersburg is different. I think you'll agree with me, because you saw Moscow and St. Petersburg, and they're completely
And
different.
also Egypt. So I have better idea also about Russia now.
Especially Izhevsk. Izhevsk, I think it's more Russian than Moscow and St. Petersburg, let's say, more real Russia. Because Moscow and St. Petersburg are both capitals, former or these days capitals. And as about St. Petersburg, we tell that it is the cultural, still the cultural capital. And by the way, everyone from Moscow will tell you, I even do not want to ask you where you preferred more in St. Petersburg or in Moscow, because people differ, they completely differ in this way. And usually they tell that Who are from Moscow, they tell that Moscow is the best. And of course, we are who are from St. Petersburg originally, we tell that St. Petersburg is the best one.
Yeah, and as a
So,
foreigner, I would say for living, I prefer Moscow because it has so many facilities. But I love St. Petersburg for relaxing. So whenever I want to relax, I really want to go there. But
uh,
as I said, for living, I prefer Moscow personally.
well, usually we tell in different way. Here in St. Petersburg, like Moscow is for business, and St. Petersburg is for culture, for life. So it depends what you prefer. Of course, St. Petersburg is also a large city. It's 7 millions here, and that's why it's really very large, and the traffic jams and so on are here. But in
Yes.
Moscow, they are even larger. So, and of course, as it's the capital, as it is said, all the money are there, and people who would like to have business, of course, they try to do it there first of all. But St. Petersburg is also very important for Russia. I see the recommends that Moscow has lots of fun. St. Petersburg also has lots of fun, guys. You
Monsieur
have
Rivera says that Moscow has lots of fun, but also St. Petersburg has it too, right? But he's right. Actually, Moscow has more options, you know. So for in Moscow, every weekend you have a place to go. But St. Petersburg seems to be a smaller comparing to Moscow, of course. Comparing to many cities in the world, St. Petersburg has lots of options, of course.
Here you have lots to do also, especially because we have lots of theaters, cinemas, for example. I also can compare with European countries as I were to Lithuania, you know, and I usually go there, and I were to some European countries. So not like only, you know, I was born only in Russia and I speak only Russian and I do not understand what. No, I understand the reality and what is going in the world. And lots of my classmates who are from Lithuania, they went across Europe, so they live everywhere around the world. And that's why we usually discuss what is happening there and here. And of course, here in Russia, what is a real plus that we have here, each almost each day you can find where to go. The museums, theaters, cultural events, uh, just large, beautiful parks and nature. It depends on you. Sometimes just because of the large city, when you have the work and so on, you are tired to do something. But if you want to, you will find for sure. Even during these COVID times, when my friends from Europe told me, is it everything closed there? Just it looked like we are open here. It was closed, but not so strict, the situation in comparison with European countries, of course.
Yeah, also, as I noticed, Russian people didn't care about it as much as others. And Nusha also asked an interesting question, but before going through that, you mentioned about culture in St. Petersburg. They know St. Petersburg as the cultural capital of Russia, but why is that?
Well, if to start from about, because lots of cultural events are happening here. Of course, in Moscow also, but like in St. Petersburg, there is a great amount of cultural places. Because I think you know that St. Petersburg city. Why I tell that it's unique? Not because just I love it or that's I'm a guide. Because St. Petersburg is the place where there are lots of museums, and our city center is included to UNESCO list. So we can't, our government and people there, they, for example, they can't in the city center build something new. To compare, for example, let's compare with London, where you can see at once the Westminster Abbey and their high skyscrapers. They're everywhere, very close to each other. Here, no. here all the city center and the suburbs where we have palaces, our famous Catherine Palace and the Peterhof, which are, I see there is the question what you would recommend to visit. And of course, if you come to St. Petersburg for the first time, these places like must visit because it's better one time to see than 100 times to hear. And that's why, as we are in this UNESCO list, they are very, they're like they were 300 years ago. So you can imagine how people lived, in what palaces, what era they breathed that period. As of course, everything changes. By the way, you've told that Moscow is very comfortable, and I have to admit, this is really so, especially if to speak about disabled people. We are usually foreigners, they are afraid also about this because like Russians are not very prepared to such a situation. And I want to tell about St. Petersburg, like why it's happening so, not because we are unfriendly or something like that, just because our city center is in the UNESCO list. They can't do anything there, and it's very difficult to change something to help those people. And in our palaces, they try like to do to add something, but they can't completely differ to do the reconstruction or something like that. Yes, we have like the lifts, but even there are situations that people can't see something because we do not have, for example, place for that for them. So
Yes,
this
interesting. So what you had
just
mentioned
people
about
told me
the,
who
yeah,
came here. They told that in Moscow it's much more easier about this situation for them.
yes, and what you mentioned about the buildings in St. Petersburg that they didn't touch it because of this reason, the same we could say about Paris. And that's why maybe we could say they resemble somehow these two cities. Is that true?
Uh, because we were in very good relationships, let's say so, with France also in one period. And for example, we
Especially
have
with
like,
Napoleon, sure.
and we and we have twin bridges, twin brothers. Like we have bridges in France and here in St. Petersburg. So, well, I can't compare. You know, we are different, and Paris has its own chic. It's also very interesting to visit and so on. But you know, here in St. Petersburg, usually people are shocked because of the large places. Everywhere in Europe, they're so small where they can go. They're like house near, we have here the distance, as it is preferred to speak about Russia, that like you can see everywhere. Just our palace square, it's so huge. By the way, even in Moscow, the square is not so large as in St. Petersburg, because you have to remember that St. Petersburg was the capital when Russia was the empire. So that's why we have those imperial things, you know, that people are shocked. And sometimes they tell me about, for example, our palaces also. My tourists, wow, I understand. Oh, so my followers wrote me, well, after seeing your palaces, I've understood why the revolution happened, because it was such a great difference between people, between the stratas. But I've told, do not think at once like this one. These palaces that we have, they are from another period. They are like the symbol of the Peter the Great time. And it is, we have to think when we are there, this is their, this is the 17th and 18th century. And in that period, like they didn't have, you know, like the newspapers and so on. And for them, it was very special when the ambassadors, the foreigners came. And for them, when they saw their sculptures, this was like the real book for them. and each sculpture had its own meaning. So they like looked around and they had to understood at once that this sculpture and that they speak about the justice, about the strength, what people wanted to translate. And of course, our uh, tsars, they wanted to show that Russia is also has strength and also has money. That's why when we come, for example, usually people are shocked how beautiful, how rich it looks like, because it was such a period they had to show this. And of course, our palaces like the treasure box. Nowadays, around the palaces and around the parks, of course, there is another life when there are small houses where simple people live and so on, yes. But in that period, it was just like the treasure box in the woods. And of course, it was the shock for the foreigners. And that's why Russia was the empire. And that's why people started to speak about Russia seriously. And thanks to Peter the Great also. That's why we call him Peter the Great. And usually foreigners know only, to be honest, there are, of course, not so many people who are coming, they are good in the history, and that is normal. But about Peter the Great and about Catherine the Great, I think know almost everyone who is coming. And of course, we
Yes.
have lots of things to be proud of. The Hermitage only, for example, where you can come.
Museum, yeah, that's wonderful.
And we have, like, you know, the conception of the city. Even these days, when you asked about the skyscrapers, we have that large one. We call it like the cucumber.
Yeah, I didn't visit that one, by the way. Is it far from the city center?
It's well, it's difficult to speak when the city is so large. Is it far away? No.
Yeah, but
But
from the exact, I mean, the Hermitage, for example, from the Hermitage, how is the distance? Is it far away, or you
it is
should take a
done.
taxi for that?
Yes, for sure. You have to have the taxi, the
Okay,
car.
so that's far. Okay.
Uh, it is done specially, as I've told you, that they are not
But does
able
it worth
to.
seeing for tourists when they are, it's their first time in St. Petersburg?
And now it is like all the building is done, but inside there it not opened. It is set. We are waiting for them. It is like the business center for business to come to St. Petersburg also. Gazprom, I think you know, our oil and gas company. So it is the Gazprom building, but it is said, I hope it will be, as they promise us to be, that on the highest floors there will be like the cinema, the open space for people,
Wow,
the restaurant
it would be
with a
so cool. Yeah.
with a perfect view. And of course it will be for tourists also, because it's very just, you know, it was very controversial when they decided to build it, and they asked the population and the citizen where they would like to stand, because it's the largest building in Europe. And they thought of how not to damage this central view, because as I've told you, it is in the UNESCO list. And when we have a photo of the Hermitage, we do not want to have, you know, the spire after that or something like that. But the concept is very interesting, because our city is about the dominators. We have those, it's like from one, all the buildings are of one size, because in the period, imperial period, there was like such, yeah, a decree, let's say so. It wasn't all official, but everyone understood during this decree that none of the building in the city center could be higher than the Hermitage with the Winter Palace. So yes, it was the main one, and others had to be a little bit lower. That's why we had like the skyline. It is so-called the skyline of St. Petersburg. That's why the view is so beautiful. And also we have to admit that Peter the Great, this is the one of the rarest cities which was planned. Usually people, firstly, they were from, like they were the communities and they become larger, larger, larger years, and historically they did the large city. But they are, in this case, when Peter the Great came here, they decided to build the city. That's why it was planned, and that's why we are also called, I think you know the other name, like the Northern Venice. So we can compare with the Venice
Yeah, lots
also,
of rivers there, of course.
rivers and canals, and we are famous for them also. And some of them were real, some of them were dig specially because in the previous times it was difficult speaking about the floods, and they thought then they dig those canals that they will somehow control the level of the water. But these days, this is also like one of our very beloved tradition, and also not only for the foreigners but the citizens also. When it's the perfect weather, it's such a pleasure, to have this view. And not only, for example, the excursion, but the boat tour, but also, for example, there are restaurants on water, and you have just, for example, listen to beautiful music, eat or something like that, and very romantic place.
Yes, and someone asked about a space museum, but I think that one is in Moscow. But in St. Petersburg, you don't have a bigger than Moscow, I think, right?
Bigger than Moscow? No, of course not. The because in Moscow they now have that one which is very up to date, and they are the best in this. Of course, in St. Petersburg we also have, but not so large.
Yeah, so for those who go to Moscow, that one I suggest for sure. But in St. Petersburg, there are much more things to visit for sure, as Marina says.
It depends on what time are you coming here. If you come here for the first time, it completely differs from the thing if you come here for the second, third, fourth, and so on. As I tell, it's usually a good idea, always a good idea to come to St. Petersburg, even if you were here. Just people are usually shocked that it's very European because we have the same style. Why? Because the architects were invited from Europe, the best architects, and that's why we look like the European city here. But of course, people usually prefer to think, and even you chose for our conversation, the church on a spilled blood, because usually people think that Russia is like that church or on a spilled blood. They think that all our buildings will be like that one.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a stereotype
yeah.
too.
But in St. Petersburg, this is, we can tell, like the only one which has that old Russian style. Yes, the
But
church.
everyone
And
are very interested in such buildings. Khram, as you call, right?
once again,
Khram, you call them khram. Is that
Hram.
correct?
The,
Yes, yes.
the,
So
yeah.
usually tourists are crazy about them because this is a kind of identity of Russia. So that's why also whenever I go there, I want to take pictures with them because they look so unique for us.
But they really are. And nowadays, of course, there are places which are completely touristic. For example, they work as a church also, but in other period, like they have the place where you can come, the period if you want to see it as the church, and there are period when you come there as a tourist, and they like divide those periods, and this is more like as we are the guides and people who want to show, or for example who are not very into the religion, they want it to be like the museum. But of course people who are very into orthodoxy and very religion, they think that it is the church and it has to be the church, and it's always a difficult topic to speak, and they try to find something to stay in between, to be like for everyone, to give this the opportunity to see these magnificent places. It's really interesting if you are not into the religion or if you do not understand, because it's a masterpiece inside. Our mosaics are just perfect, and that's is the play. You here was the question of what people firstly when they come, what I suggest to see. But these are they are really the most touristic, but they are must see. The Church of the Spilled Blood, the Hermitage, the better both palaces, which are the suburbs, but it's quite usually uh, it's difficult to do, especially if you come for one day. You have to choose. We have St. Ossie Cathedral, and these are the places that people usually choose for their first time. And usually, if they come for one day, they try, to see everything. Of course, the Nevsky Prospect, and it's so hard for them because our Hermitage alone is one of the. We are proud to have it because it's really the largest one, and it's on the high level. It's like the Metropolitan, it's like the.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm hearing you. Just trying to fix my chair. Sorry. Yes.
Okay, and that's why, of course, it's there. For example, in Hermitage alone, I meant that you can spend lots of time there, and each time you go there, it's impossible. It's impossible to know everything there, even for the guides. You think that if a licensed guide, that yes, we spend a lot of time there, but it's impossible. I even think that people who work there for all their life, they also find interesting things for them there in the Hermitage. And usually people are divided into those who want to see the interiors, who are much more interested in the interiors of this palace, and to people who prefer paintings. And in this case, of course, they go to see our Madonnas, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo's statues, and so on. So it differs on what you prefer, but you can find everything for you. And it's quite difficult to see everything. It's you have to admit it's impossible. So even if you come here for long, so you have to choose what is more close to you. What would
Exactly.
you like to see? Would you like to see and I usually ask because, for example, even the Hermitage, we have the place where the paintings, or for example, the place where are impressionists, and some people who are in love with them, they want to see them, but this is another building. So you have to think that in previous times, everything was very strict with the time, and time limits are very, especially in those large museums, it was very strict because people were going one by one by one. And of course, now it's a shock when you come there, and because the number of people is limited due to these COVID restrictions, and you come and you see. For us, of course, it's not empty, but in comparison with the large groups of people, you're coming and it's like empty, and you think, wow, from one point of view, it's so great that you can see when it is empty to, not to be forced to look around to those interiors, and no one like pushing you around that I want to photo it also.
Yeah, that's a
But
good thing actually.
yes, but from another point of view, it's so sad that
Of course.
that we do not have those tourists, and of course, for the guides, it's a hard period. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
For all the
As
tourists.
someone who went there 3 times, people ask me one question a lot. And I want to hear your take about this as a professional tour leader in St. Petersburg. That St. Petersburg is more suitable for singles or couples when they want to visit it. Yeah.
Oh, well, interesting question, by the way. I never thought about St. Petersburg as the place for a couple or for a single, because I think you can find everything for you, what you want to find. I mean, for the couples, you can choose more romantic places, like the boat trip. But even if you're alone, it's so great it seems to me, to go on a boat trip, to listen to the relaxing music. Of course, just it's like the romantic place where the bridges are open during the midnight. It's very romantic, and in this case, of course, it's better to be with a couple, but why not to come alone to see this beauty also? And I can't say that it is better for for the couple or not. But as I work, I have lots of people who come, like the couples. Lots of come people with children, with the whole family, and lots of people who come like with their friends. Just so they're not couples, they're coming like four guys, they're coming to see, and they also want to see. Of course, it depends. For example, we have vodka museum.
Vodka
Because,
Museum in St.
yeah,
Petersburg.
yes, there is one. And just this is also one of the myths of Russia, that we all drink vodka. It seems to me that people think that women, children, everyone, like so on. But people like this idea, and sometimes when they come here, this is like the traditional also thing, and they have a try this, for example, vodka with caviar or something like that. So it depends. If you're single, then you can come and choose this variant. If you're a couple, you can find another variant. So plenty of variants depending on your mood, on your attitude, and the place what. Because sometimes people, it depends on the aim, and I usually ask, what do you want me to show you? Yeah, and I can suggest, of course, but it's always depends. For example, some people want to see, as you know, Kamunauka, or there is even the Banya tour. So people want to relax and something like that, to have like Russian spa, let's say so.
Right, it's
So it,
both for singles and couples anyway, right? So it doesn't matter.
for me, it doesn't matter, to be honest. This is my I see here lots of people who are coming. Maybe there are cities which are so like romantic one, that where you have to go like a couple, but St. Petersburg is suitable for everyone, I think.
Yes, and Robert from LA is asking very detailed questions about St. Petersburg. You already found a customer, I think. He's interested to come there, and he's asking also about places. If you can read that, he's asking whether you have such a tour for that place or not.
Now I'll check, because to say the truth,
Pushkin Sela.
Pushkin. You mean the cemetery?
So, Robert, if you like, please answer that you mean cemetery or not.
If you have questions, you can write into my account and we will discuss, because there are very different requests usually. Some people really want to go not only to the museums, but for example, there was such a request when this was the women from, they were from the University of America, and they were connected with chemistry, and that's why when they came, they told me, I have to see the monument of Mendeleev. So this is very unusual thing, I say, and we've done for them. We went even to the Mendeleev Museum, but this
Okay,
is not
so you
like
may personalize your tours also for your customers sometimes.
Sure, but it depends on people. But just I can't say that it is, very usual request to see the Mendeleev Museum. No, it's not. But it was great for me also, because my life was also once connected with chemistry, and I understand something in that, and it was interesting for me to show also. And some people really go to the cemeteries also, so because they are also like one place of interest, and where there were the places of great people. But of course, if it's when this request is so unique, usually people ask and write in advance and try to show this. I especially done this Instagram. Usually the guides, the license guide, maybe I have to tell why the license guide and what is the difference between the guide and the
Yes,
license
yes,
guide.
that would be useful.
Here in St. Petersburg, the situation differs in all the cities and in other countries. But in St. Petersburg, if you're a licensed guide, that means that you have special license to each museum where you go. What does it mean? That means that I had the exams there, not only like one about the city, but also to each museum, to the main places. And the more licenses you have, the better guide you are, because just, and all our museums were people who work there in the Hermitage or in the Petrograd Palace or in the Catherine's Palace. They believe, they honestly believe that their museum is the best, and that you have to tell only, they want you to know this information to give to the tourists. With Russian people, they are museum workers, they tell the tours. But if you come with the foreigners, they want you to tell people the truth, not like the information or the fakes from the internet. And that's why they give you, and this is also good for the guides also, because it seems that it is a history, but to be honest, each time they do something more and more and more. They read the documents, new documents appears. And of course, when you work with people, we are not working with the documents, for example. And when we come each year to have an exam or to prolong our license, they tell us this latest news. And for example, sometimes people really, we are guides, we're not like the, how to say, we not the library, we can't know everything, and sometimes there is such a tricky questions, that you also can ask the specialist from that special museum to tell us the information. So this is like the meeting. And if you're not the licensed guide, that means that well, maybe you're also very interested in your culture, maybe you're the historical, but if you like the serious one, you have to have the license. This is like the entrance for you, and this is showing that you have knowledge.
I see. So, Marina, I try to usually keep the interviews short in order not to lose the video, because Instagram usually has some problem with long videos, especially after 1 hour. Still, I have so many questions for you. So maybe in another time, if we will have time, we will also continue with a specific topic in St. Petersburg.
Thank you.
That would be very lovely.
Questions that would be great for people, for example, to speak about questions, because as to visit St. Petersburg one time isn't enough to speak about it. We also can for ages. Maybe there are specific questions to answer you. Either you can write me especially, or find maybe in my blog also. I try to speak about what my followers are interested in, and of course I'd gladly speak with you also. Thank you
Thank you
for the
very much.
invitation
And
once
for
again.
those who are asking to where they can ask you their questions, you mean your Instagram, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, guys, so you can send your questions to Marina directly. Marina, thanks a lot for joining me today. It was very educational and fun. Even for me, that I've been there 3 times, I think for others it could be more interesting. And I
And
would
I'm
really
so
love
sure
to
from
hear
the
their feedback.
time spent like in a minute, that means oh, it was good enough. Thank you.
Yeah, it was because of you. It was very lovely. Thank you very much, Marina. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. See you. Paka paka.
See
Paka,
ya.
Marina.
Пока. Супер.